because this is a very multicultural city, and like 18% of the population are actually Emirati locals, like citizens. The rest, like 80%, are all expatriates that came here for work.
Hmm.
Like, so you would have to be literate in English, and I imagine
Yeah.
most, like 99% of them were. So that's fine. But my opinion is that a lot of people actually, kind of put myself as like an unofficial like kind of guide because there was a lot of people coming in the queue since I was first in the queue. Like, what is this for? Like, what's going
Mm.
on here? Is there a concert going on? And I was like, no, this is a Counter-Strike tournament. And then people would be like, oh, okay, and then they would just leave, or like they would be like, oh, what? And then like, do they get to win prizes? And then when I'd say, yeah, $100,000 for their first prize, then they would be like really surprised. So like most people that were there were just there because either they had money and they were bored, or like they just like Pasha. That was pretty much it. There's a huge
Oh, there was a
presence
lot of Pasha
of
fans
Pasha.
were there.
Yeah,
Right, I see.
basically, if you look at some of the clips, where the crowd was actually going crazy, I had a
Mm.
few of my friends that were new. I was actually like getting everyone hyped kind of because it was really sad. I was like, whenever NIP would like do a great play, I would just keep shouting NIP. Like my vocal cords are completely dead. I don't know if you can tell by my voice right, but I was
I
shouting like
think I think people
Neo,
like
Neo.
your voice. It works for you.
Uh,
The chat is saying you've got a great voice, so you should stay like
well, thank you,
that. Don't get better.
Morgan Freeman. But so anyway, so I was just trying my best to make this an enjoyable event because I have a deep passion and love for Counter-Strike, and it was just heartbreaking to see like Neo get a 4K and no one would react. That was just ridiculous in my opinion. And but yeah, other than that, like the crowd was virtually inexistent, but when you try hard, they would get there. Okay, end of day one. I'll make sure this isn't a long call for you. Sorry.
So
So
I don't
day
worry.
two.
Take that.
All right, day two. So there was this, as I said, meet the team thing at 1 p.m. So I came at like 11 a.m. I was just like completely hyped because I wanted to be the first in queue, be the first to meet the teams and such. So I went in the queue. I was there for like literally 3 hours waiting, and then they started making like a VIP line or whatever for people to go first. And then after like 30 minutes, after 1 p.m. had passed, like one of the quote unquote organizers who wasn't a part of ESL, by the way, all those people. Oh, by the way, at Games 15, they make maybe like judging by the price of the tickets and about like 30,000 people attending each year,
Mm.
estimately. Um, they make probably around like 1 million to 5 million dirhams profit out of this, and all of their staff are volunteers. They're not paid.
So
None
it
of
was
them are paid.
there was a lot of volunteer staff there, was there?
Yeah, all of the staff that weren't part of ESL that were for Games 15 were all unpaid volunteers.
Was there one company or did they just literally sign up on a forum or how did it work? Like how did they get the volunteers? Do you know?
Actually, I know that one of the organizers of Games 15 went on Reddit actually, and he
Mm.
on our Dubai, and he actually put a post up and said if you want to sign up, like email us here, or like go to this website or whatever, and that's how you would sign up, and you would get like a free attendance for 3 days to all the events, and you'd get like on your work resume, yeah, I've attended this, and I was a volunteer or whatever,
Right, I
that.
see.
So
Okay.
anyway, when I was in queue after like 30 minutes after 1 p.m. had passed, so I'd been there for like maybe 2 or 3 hours and 30 minutes in that queue waiting. Um, an organizer came out and said, "Hey guys, yeah, the teams aren't here. This is postponed for tomorrow."
Mm.
So I remember during that I checked Twitter and the Cloud9 were actually like touring Burj Khalifa at the time, so like being toured around Dubai and stuff. So I don't know what's going on, if their management is horrible, if it was badly organized, or if no one was actually aware there was a meet the teams at that point. I mean, the booklet said there would be a meet the team at 1 p.m. I was there and was postponed for the next day. So okay,
Okay.
moving on. So went to the games once again.
Hmm.
Watched the games. It was just the normal thing. Bean bags. Watched the stage and yeah, delay because of VAC errors, etc. But overall, I mean, for me at least, since I'm a Counter-Strike fan, it was enjoyable to me. It wasn't optimal, but it was enjoyable.
Okay.
One thing about the heat that people are concerned about. So, there were these big AC units, like probably like the size of a wardrobe, pretty much, that were right behind the each one of the players that were pumping air into their backs. In my opinion, it was probably freezing in there because that would be pretty cold.
Yeah.
But I know that Taz said that one person in the Reddit AMA said he went full Dubai. He said that in the on stage, so he turned his AC off because he said it was annoying to him that it was hot in his face and in his back it was cold.
Mm.
I'm sure there was a discussion between. Actually, I know that there was a discussion between the organizers. They talked about if they should put the ACs in front or behind the players. First of all, there should be no discussion. If you're gonna put your AC units in front of the players, what's the point? The players won't have any interaction with the crowd. What are you doing? At the
Yeah, yeah.
back, again, the problem with that. So the optimal thing would have just been an indoor booth. So to me, this kind of proves that this event was mostly rushed. Like they just came here, got the money, left. Because if you didn't plan that kind of thing, complete rush. So yeah, there was that, and then yeah, the games went on. So the arena, there was of course in that it was still the group stage in group two because we had the elimination matches and such. So there were actually studio games until 6 p.m. And then at
Okay.
6 p.m. the arena would be open. You could go, and it would last until 2 in the morning.
Right.
Oh yeah. So that's the end of day two. Day
Hmm.
three. So that's today actually. So I came same thing. I came 3 hours early for the meet the teams thing, and I stayed in the queue first. And then someone that was basically managing the stage at Games 15 there, he came out and he said, "All right, so we have a very special guest coming here. You can see there are tables and chairs, so something is happening. So a team is coming here to meet you guys, and they're ninjas in pajamas." And I was really happy because I'm an NIP fan, so.
Okay.
Like I've been watching them for years. Forrest, I've been following him for since like 2007, basically, and so I was really excited.
Mm.
And so NIP. Oh, and he like the organizer basically had literally no idea who NIP were, what CS:GO is. Like pretty much, he just had like a very vague idea. He was asking like, "Do you know what games they play?" And we were like, "Okay, CS:GO," and he was like, "Okay." And then yeah, exactly. Like it just it was I was getting
Yeah,
kind of
that
pissed.
that
And then
that that seems ridiculous.
yeah, and then he actually said at one point, I'm kind of taking this out of context because he kind of made this up as a joke, but I feel it was completely out of place. He said, "By the way, there's a Call of Duty tournament going on over there." Like, dude, just fuck off. Like, shut up.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Not, not,
uh,
not the time.
yeah, and then he asked. He said he will be doing like a short Q&A, like a short interview, and he asked us. Actually, he asked the crowd like, "What question should I ask them?" And at that point, I was like, okay, time to mess with him because he knows nothing. So I just told him, ask the bearded guy, so Forrest, because he has the most prominent beard, of course. I told him, ask him what his config is. So he had no idea what a config was, obviously, but you know he went for it, and it was pretty much a laugh for me and for Forrest, I imagine.
Mm.
So yeah, that's that. And then we got to meet the team. So the VIPs got in first, of course, like 50 VIPs, 8-year-old kids pretty much went in, met Nip. And then I finally went in and got my mouse pad signed, met each of the players. By the way, NIP are really nice people for everyone in the chat. Like they just went out of the way to sign for everyone, take pictures with everyone. Forrest actually went out of his way to take a picture with me at the end of the signing session because I hadn't had the time to take a picture with him. And then NIP actually took me like behind the stage to get a picture with all of them because I didn't get a picture with them, and they were just really nice about everything. And
Cool.
then the next team that was there that was announced was Cloud9,
Mhm.
and they did their signing sessions, take pictures with everyone, etc. And that was it. No other team were there. So I was really happy because I got my NIP signature, I got my NIP pictures. I'm a happy man. What about the people that were fans of Envious, that were fans of Titan, fans of Virtus Pro, fans of Navi? They got nothing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
why do you have any insight as to why not all the teams were doing these signings? Because I'm pretty sure it's ESL want them to be mandatory for all teams, all organizations to do it, and that certainly was the impression I got of the ESL One Cologne. I can't think of one team that didn't do a signing, and I think Fnatic even went and did two because they did an impromptu one after they won the final, and it was immediately after their press conference. So, any insight as to why some teams didn't do it and some did?
Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and call that like bad organization or like zero
Mm.
control over the event because so first of all, even judging by the delay of yesterday, like Cloud9 were like in a completely different place. They had no idea this was going on and they had to postpone it. That just tells me that like bad organization from there on. At the end of day two, so the day before the NIP and Cloud9 came out to sign, so the day before that, at the end of the NIP versus TSM game.
Mhm.
NIP were supposed to come out near the barrier and like do signings and stuff. Like we were told by one of the organizers to queue up at the end of the best of three. By the way, one little anecdote about the crowd as well. So the CS:GO community kind of has this thing where people say, you know, comebacks can always happen. Like,
Yeah.
we have seen this. It's been proved. Like it just happens. That's how CS:GO is. And like it was literally 15 10, I think, and the game ended at 16-12, I believe. The last map on NIP was a TSM. At
Mm.
15-10, pretty much half the crowd was at the fence lining up because they were like, okay, this is over.
Well,
So just
yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, and anyway, NIP didn't come, and I'm just gonna say they were really down because they lost or whatever. I don't know. I can't say. It's just one
Mm.
speculation, but I mean, if they were supposed to come, they probably should have come. And the organizer just came out and told us, yeah, they're not here. I honestly don't know why they left.
Mm.
That's all he said. And so yeah, I'm just gonna say the team's not being here, or whatever, probably because they had no control over them actually coming or whatever. Like I imagine the teams that lost day one that had to go home day one, like they probably took the first plane and left. I don't know.
Yeah.
They were probably on tour in Dubai. I'll just put it out there, like because most of them are touring
So
Dubai.
overall, do you feel, that you got value for money, you had a positive experience? Do you think that there's enough promise there to say that if we did another event in this region, it would be well received, it would be better, we could get better crowds, more interest? I mean, what are your sort of overall final prevailing thoughts about it?
Well, this is kind of this just is so conflicting to me because I'm biased. I'm an NIP fan. It was just such an enormous experience for me to have them randomly come out here and just like get to meet them and everything. It was just I was just so happy.
Yeah.
But definitely overpriced.
Hmm.
The value just I mean it was there. It just could have been way better in my opinion. And like okay, I don't know if some of you know this, but okay, there are matchmaking Dubai servers. I don't play in these, and I get 5 ping in them. I'd rather play on Europe with my teammate at 100 to 160 ping because I don't want to get queued with those people. Most of
Yeah.
them are hackers. Literally everyone is a hacker. They don't care if they get banned. They have money. They just can buy another account. They don't care. Second of all, they just don't play CS to play CS. They all just fuck around. They troll. They shout at each other. They swear at each other. They have no teamwork. Like I mean, I know this is like really stupid, okay, but I could literally say that a global there would probably
Mm.
be considered a Nova or Master Guardian in the Europe region. I know this is a bad comparison, but I'm just putting that out there just
No,
like
no,
as well.
I've heard similar things about. I got
Yeah.
friends who obviously work for companies out in Malaysia, where there's a lot of gaming peripheral companies, and they say the same thing about that region. They say it's like a fucking nightmare. Like even when you're playing in the highest echelons there in global, it's like you can't believe the shit you're seeing.
Yeah, and that's the problem for me because I hope to be semi-professional like at one point, and like seeing this in Dubai is just like I have to play at 120 ping to get a good experience in Counter-Strike.
Mm.
So this region, it's rising in gaming. Like you have to say, there's a lot of people that want to buy games here. There's a lot of people that have gaming consoles. Like everyone here is pretty much every teenager here plays video games. Competitive though, competitive scene, competitive games. I just don't see it here. I don't think there's a mentality for it. I don't think like there's. I just don't think it can work here. Competitive gaming.
Okay. Well, look, man, we're gonna move on to one last call, but I just want to say, look, thanks for a very thorough breakdown of the event. As I said, I wasn't able to go. I genuinely didn't really have an interest in going, actually, which that might not sound like a very professional thing to say, but it's got nothing to even do with me sort of thinking ESL were necessarily going to put on a bad event, but I kind of subscribe to your way of thinking. I just don't know if Dubai is anything other than an exercise in trying to impress
Yeah.
people with money. And I think there's other regions, Eastern European regions, South American regions, that definitely deserve the opportunity and companies putting money into their economy and their infrastructure, not just for esports, but the bigger picture than Dubai. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just how I feel about it. So
One final line of thought for some people that I know
sure.
like are on this whole bandwagon of like the workers, bad conditions here. Yeah, that happens, but you have to like it's just such a different and complex problem that I can't really address it here. One thing though, just putting that out there,
Mm,
the people that were in charge of security there, so not actually like volunteers or whatever, paid security workers there that were in charge of the security.
mm,
Well, obviously most of them are Asian immigrants or whatever, but they were there in the heat the whole day from like the morning to the end. They were just like they had like water in the middle of the day. They were bought like bottles of water, but they were there in like 36 degrees, 40 degrees like heat.
mm,
And I talked to one of them, and I know he was he was being paid like, of course, this has the company. It's a private company. It's not like it doesn't have any affiliation, like a direct affiliation to ESL or Games 15, whatever. They were a hired company. But I'm just putting that out there. At this event, there were security workers that were hired and they were paid. Um, of course, this someone told me that. Okay, one of them told me that, so I can't know for sure, and I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But they were paid apparently. Let me just convert $544 a month. Yep. And
Fucking
yeah.
Sam makes more than that. I fucking pay him in sandwiches.
Well, yeah.
Fucking
Anyway, so
terrible. Yeah.
thank you
Well, look,
so much for having me on the show. Man.
Hey, no
I
worries.
hope we can come-
Yeah, absolutely, definitely do. I think everybody, wants to thank you for your diligence, and we appreciate it. Anytime you want to talk about anything else related to esports, this is the show to do it. So look after yourself, and no doubt we'll speak in the future.
All right, thank you. Keep being awesome.
worries.
Thank you everyone for having me, and I'll see you later. Morgan Freeman.
Peace out. Take care. There we go. So what a lovely chap, Sam.
What a nice guy.
What a nice guy. And I am right. That security guard does make more a month than you.
No, you said I make more than him. I do make more than him, mate. We're not
No,
quite
that's what I
that,
mean. Yeah,
we're
sorry,
not quite
sorry,
that
sorry.
deep in poverty.
No, yeah, we're not. You're right. Yeah. You do. It's about evens, I think, isn't it?
No, like,
No?
mate, if we were making the same, I might have killed myself by now.
That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm going for, actually. I just because then I get the
me over the edge.
then I get the tragedy money. Like I get to come out and do a trash talk, and it's
And
like
don't have to share half a Patreon anymore.
we do the slow music, just like like super slow, and it's just a black screen, and it just cuts to me, and it's like Sam Davis is no longer with us. He was pushed over the edge after years of being overworked, underpaid,
And overweight.
and overweight. By the way, mate,
Oh, here we go.
didn't we have a bet?
Did we? What
Oh
bet?
no, you're right. Wrong. It was for Worlds. It was for Worlds. Right. That photo needs to be out there, mate.
Yeah.
The photo of you on the plane is
No, what
fucking
was the
too
bet?
good.
If Fnatic don't make the final,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we can
If
release
they
that
don't make the
picture, right?
final, yeah, we're gonna release that picture. Yeah,
Fucking hell.
it's so good. I mean, did you show people last week the first one though?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you just slumped over in the chair? You should bring that up again, guys. It's fucking so funny. Like, I just look. Just get that up on my fucking screen right now. We're going nowhere until I see that. It's fucking unreal. Like, it's just the way your forehead's like, bruh, like straight into the chair. Like, it's
Yeah, I've
fucking
had
so
enough, man.
He's had enough.
I've had more than enough.
Tell you what. Oh shit. Hang on then. Before we do our last caller, let's just play this. I do love it. Like, right, let me just find it. You bring that
Show this
picture up.
picture. There it is.
Yeah. You bring it up, man. You bring it up.
He's had enough. Get him out.
Yeah, that's what we need. Like, I've got to find that clip, mate.
Which one?
Get him out.
Alright.
Find it. I demand that this is on the show. Just find it. Quicker. Have you got it? Yeah, I think it's this bit, innit?
Yeah, I found it, but it's 5 minutes long. But...
Don't care, just play it, but get it on. Right, so this is basically kind of how I like to treat Sam before a show. So you'll be able to tell which one I am. I'm the naked one in this video.
Actually playing 5 minutes of this.
Mate, we're just doing it. We're just doing it. Come on. Help me, Neil.
Help
get it
me,
on.
Neil. Quicker. Alright, you'll have to wait 30 seconds. Okay.
Yeah. Right. I know, and it is quite frightening actually. There are some weird similarities. A lot of people do think I am your father, and we met. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it'd be like the most fucked up thing ever if it was true. And logistically, it can work. Like age-wise, it can all marry up. You know, like.
Can it? Love it.
In Port Talbot, it definitely can. Yeah.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible, man. We've got 12-year-old grandmothers in Port Talbot. Like, it's fucking unreal. Anyway, right, let's get this clip on. So as I said, this is how me and Sam like to prepare for a
Still
show.
waiting, sec. We're not ready yet. Mate, you just sprung it on me like 10
Yeah, this
seconds
is
ago.
live TV, motherfucker. That's how it's meant to be like.
Yeah, live TV. Let's just play this copyrighted clip. That
Yeah,
means
quicker,
you'll now have
quicker.
to download this VOD and cut it out so we can earn our pennies.
Quicker.
Quicker. I don't control the internet speed. Come the fuck on.
You're better than this. All right, well, I'm just gonna talk about what Among You are then until you get it up. No, not really.
10 seconds.
We can just cut this pause out with the VOD. Doesn't even matter. I don't even need to entertain these cunts. Fuck them.
No.
Thanks for the Patreon money, though, guys.
Right, there we go. We're ready.
Right, let's do it. So as I said, me and Sam preparing for a show. I'm the guy with no clothes on. Fucking
Mate,
God, well,
check
quicker!
that out.
Quicker!
How good was that fucking production work, mate? He saved a ban.
Oh man, so fucking like. Anyway, so that's why that's literally what we do before every show. That the grease is up my ass with my when we go to war.
Mate,
so.
like literally 2 minutes in this clip, Richard especially. This has a knob in it. We're getting banned. Fuck you.
Oh fuck me, man.
I don't
Anyway.
think I let any knob out anyway, mate. I think they're safe. If anything, there might have been one cheek escaped.
Well done there.
Fucking
Right,
hell.
anyway, let's get one more call done, and then I can enjoy San Francisco. So who've we got, and what do they want to talk
Next
about?
we have Harris Peskin, and he wants to talk about the esports conference had the team owners advocating a players union, yet didn't actually have any players. Ultimately, I feel the two parties do not have interests that align.
Okay, yeah, I think he's right. So this should be a fairly quick call, I imagine. We're going to agree. It's the good old echo chamber. But Harris, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Another great microphone. What a great day for it. So look, Harris, the point you make obviously is a very salient one. There was lots of talk during this esports conference about player unions. This is something that's been talked about in excess, I would say, at the moment. There's a lot of hot button topics that are coming up, and yet here we are, and we're talking about the importance of a players union utilizing the opinions and expertise of team owners who, as I've said many times over, ultimately it's their they make their living by leveraging and, you could argue, exploiting the talents of players. So I agree with you. I don't think their interests align, but why don't you tell me what you think about it?
First of all, whatever clip we just watched, that was absolutely incredible.
Oh man, check out Bronson. Okay, so just to put it in perspective, this is a guy, he's called, I can't even fucking remember his real name, but he changed his name to Charles Bronson when he was in prison. He has been in prison for life, most of it in solitary confinement, and all he tried to do was rob a post office. But every time he was in prison, he would just beat the shit out of people. He'd take guards hostage. He wrote an autobiography called Laughing All the Way to the Crematorium. I strongly recommend people check it out. And that movie's fucking brilliant. It was one of the first performances that really made me sort of stand up and take notice of Tom Hardy. And yes, you do get to see his penis. So it's got a bit of everything in there. So
The editing was just insane. Yeah. So yeah, for those of you that don't know, I'm also an esports attorney. There's many of us now sprouting up. I would say that with regards to the players union issue, when I was watching the esports conference, I was feeling a little bit I was a bit confused as to why there were team owners on stage talking about the need for a players union, when ultimately it's my opinion that their interests really just they don't align. I feel that, you know, if anyone should have been up on that stage talking about the need for a players union, it should have been the player, because ultimately not necessarily, you know, those owners in particular,
Yeah.
but ultimately the owners are the ones that are, you know, on the other side of that contract, right? They're the ones handing out the contracts, which are maybe taking too much advantage of those players. So I feel that the players really should have been, you know, strongly represented at that conference, and there really weren't any, you know, any players there that we could reference to say that they really were they were, you know, I guess advocating on their own behalf.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think the thing that worries me most of all about this idea is I keep hearing this repeated phrase, And I believe this might be true for some people, but my experience tells me it's certainly not true in all cases, and arguably the majority of the time, in my experience, it's not true. And the repeated phrase was, we as managers obviously need to represent the interests of our players, and it's this repeated phrase. Now, that's true in principle, but in practice, it absolutely isn't. For example, if you're running a business, it's only natural that you understand employees come and go. You cannot invest completely in the interests of your employees. You have to invest in the best interests of the business. And this is what we see when we take it to extreme conclusions. This is effectively, obviously, the model for some of the most disgusting capitalist excesses. Think Coca-Cola, for example, who turn a blind eye to trade union representatives being killed in their bottling plant in Bogota, and then saying, hey, they're just subcontractors of ours. We've only got one office globally, so we can't be held accountable for that. Most recently, there was a report from Amazon, which I can't remember, a report on Amazon, I should say, which talked about the working conditions for people in Amazon, and it was horrendous. They were interviewing people, and they were like, I can't go a single day without seeing people cry at their desk. You're expected to answer the phone at anything up to midnight, even after your shift is finished. And if you don't, you can be disciplined for not doing this. And of course, Amazon management came out and basically said, we don't see it that way. We see a hardworking, diligent company that actually has incredibly high morale. Well, of course, who do you trust in this instance? Do you trust the CEO, or do you trust 100 employees that were interviewed off the record by a journalist, an independent journalist? So I think when it comes to this idea that, that the managers are always going to look after the interests of players while simultaneously looking after the interests of their business, I just don't see how that can align. You want to get away with paying them as little as you can while paying them enough so they stay and believe they get a good deal. The largest portion of sponsor money, it doesn't go straight into a player's hands. It goes on operational costs, travel expenses. The managers, of course, pay themselves a salary. And because they own the business, it's at their discretion what they put in and what they take out. And again, I stress, not all managers are slick con artists, but there's a lot of people who get into esports solely with the idea of making a profit off the back of other people's talent and other people's abilities, and treating players like walking billboards to do that.
Right, absolutely. And you were during the conference. A couple of us, I think Lazarus was in the chat as well.
Mm.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I would say that we were talking a little bit about how it was a bit. It almost seemed a bit ridiculous to have these managers up here, but not the players. And ultimately, the players are the ones that are signing the contracts, and they're the ones that are being classified as independent contractors. They're having some rights taken away from them that are really not too fair. They shouldn't be taken away from them. If they had representation, they wouldn't be taken away from it. If there was a standardized player contract, they'd be in a better position, and we wouldn't see all this abuse. But it really just hasn't happened. So I thought it was a bit, I don't want to say hypocritical for the managers to be standing up there, but I did think that it was a bit, I did think that the conference didn't really do the best job of, getting the players to really come up there and represent themselves at that conference. Because if anything, they're the lifeblood of the industry. I mean, people come to watch the players. They don't really come to watch, the managers. And they weren't even there to begin with. So I thought that, they really could have done a better job with that.
I think this is another reason, though, why this is so. Just again, complete disclosure. I've had talks with some European players about how can we put a union in place? How can we get one working for you? And I've talked to CS:GO players and League of Legends players alike. Again, I've given my credentials. Obviously, I've been doing advocacy journalism for fucking so long now for player rights issues. Mm-hmm. I've dealt with a lot of stuff privately. When companies owe prize money, off completely anonymously, it'll be me who might read through or draft letters to get it back. Sometimes it's even a case of me saying, I will publish a story about this in a week. You've got a week to get it settled, or it's negative publicity time. Right. And this is one of the reasons why I get pissed off when people talk about me, or you're just stirring up the drama. If I wrote about everything that I heard, You know, I would have a story to write every day. I actually sometimes leverage the possibility of me writing a story just to do what's right for the players behind the scenes.
Right.
So, on top of that, I worked as a trade union representative for 2 years. Basically, the shop steward, the point of reference in a very large utility company. And I'm immensely proud of the work that we did there. You know, it was literally another example of. Okay, so you'll know this, but when you're getting disciplined, you know, it's like if they want to fire you for capability reasons, you'll get a lot of companies that like say, "Hey, look, we've assessed you. It's been 6 months now. We've assessed you, and we don't think you're up to the job." And if people don't fight that, they just go, they get fired. Well, of course, it's completely. It's against European employment law. You have to demonstrate that you have ably given someone the tools to do their job before you can even fire them on capability grounds. So if you haven't put a training regime in place, or if somebody's doing the same thing consistently wrong, but you haven't documented an exercise that teaches them how to do it correctly, you can't dismiss them. They're going to get a rather healthy compensatory payout, be that through in the UK, it might be ACAS, through the resolution, that kind of work as an intermediate, or privately through a specialist in employment law. But anyway, so I put all this forward to them, and I think there's a lot of people who perhaps have reservations, perhaps because, you know, I'm a journalist and therefore I can't be trusted, or whatever their perception might be. That's made it very hard for me to kind of win everybody over. And then what happened recently was Hiko got involved, and he's been telling everybody it absolutely can't be Richard Lewis. You can't trust this guy. He's a piece of shit or whatever. Which I don't know why he's so upset with me. But I think obviously some of the stories I've written have maybe prejudiced them against me a little bit. But that's fine. The point is, it could never be me moving forward long term anyway. But it can't be, right, it has to be the players making the decisions, but they need a spokesperson or persons, because if one player acts as the mouthpiece for the union, then they're vulnerable. And to give you an example, one of the concerns that were raised in the meetings I've had about the player union was that we all know there's actually a team managers union in place now. In maybe not in the explicit legal sense of a union or association, which has a very specific requirement in the US especially. But what they do is they effectively represent their interests and collectively bargain together.
Right.
Right, and then they do it that way. So what a player's worried about is, let's say you elect a very prominent player as the head of the players' union, and they're out there and they're fucking shit up for these team managers. Well, they're worried that the managers might get together, say, I'm going to drop him from the team, make sure none of you guys pick him up, and we'll just push him out to pasture, and that'll calm him down. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, a player is still going to be reliant on an organization to get a salary. So there was that concern, and this is why I said it's got to be an ex-player, a non-current player, a commentator, a journalist, whatever it is. It's got to be someone that isn't beholden to the organization.
Well, I agree with that to some extent. First of all, I think that you're right that the players, you know, they might be right in their concern that maybe managers will band together and tell them, you know, don't pick up this player. But at the same time, managers do have their own independent interests. You know, outside of that group, they do want to win. So if you have, you know, a star player that's doing really well, and then they need that player, then they might be, you know, they might be reluctant to drop him, or another team might be, you know, they might want to pick him up. But I do agree also that, you know, outside of that, ex-players can be advocates of the people that they still know in the industry. They'd be well served to do that. And I think that outside of that, you know, maybe just some other outsider, a spokesperson, someone doesn't, I mean, you do it all the time. Someone needs to be the one that really comes out and preaches that there's, you know, some abuse that's taking place. Now, I don't do much work in League of Legends, but I do a lot of work in other, you know, titles, more like Heroes. And it's awful there right now. Some of the stuff that you see, these players are getting paid nothing. And it's just, they're being, what they're doing, they're devoting hours and hours a day, and they're forgoing, you know, a life where they can go to school, and they're dropping out, and they're really dedicating their entire livelihood to this profession, but at the same time, they're not seeing any return on it. And that might just be a product of there not being any money there, but I think ultimately that needs to change. And wherever it starts, there needs to be some sort of person that's really going to come out and just speak on behalf of these players and tell them that they're worth more than they think that they are, and that they could get a better deal, and that eventually this just needs to happen.
So, I mean, what I spent my time doing, because I know people might find this hard to believe, but when I put on a suit and I try and make myself look as dapper as physically possible at this current moment in time, and I go into a room and I put, Americans are sucker for the British accent anyway. I actually spent my time meeting with a few venture capitalists, and I was saying to them, if you wanted to make a profound impact on the shape of esports, you would absolutely get no physical return on it.
Right.
What we would need to do is we would need to get basically a one-time cash injection with no equity to found a union, and their name would be on the press release, but then that would be it. They would have no influence, no control. That money would be put into an account, and it would be used for the sole purposes of pursuing whatever the subscribers to this association required. And that's what I think this is the first step for me, because look, to be a union, you've got to be recognized by the is it the American Board of Labor or something out here? I think it's a very specific thing that it has to have. So initially, what it has to be, just to get past all that legality and before we can even get to that stage, it needs to be a one-stop shop for all the services that you might need as a player. So, for example, let's say a player or whoever it can be, it's not just limited to players. They sign up to this union and they say, hey, look, I've got these issues. And, like a paralegal would, you do the interview, you make notes, and you're like, okay, well, this issue requires an accountant. So then you would go and facilitate and take the money and pay for that individual to have an accountant. Let's say they're scared of getting caught by the IRS because, like a lot of players, they've not declared taxes for a long period of time. So, you facilitate pointing them in the right direction. Let's say it's a mental health issue, and they don't feel they can talk about it with anyone on the team or anyone within the organization. They can have an anonymous conversation, and you can best direct them to the right place. And it's the same for legal work and legal fees. And this is initially the form it would have to take. And equally as well, we would have regular meetings about any issues that arose. And let's say, for example, a tournament organizer had terrible, appalling conditions and they wanted to do a boycott. Instead of one team having to go on social media and say, we're boycotting this and hope the community don't shit on them and other teams follow suit, it would be the Esports Players Association or the Esports Professionals Association put out a group statement saying all of our members refuse to support this tournament while these conditions are in place, and all the paid up members would, but de facto accept that boycott. This is like strike action that you would see. So this is what I want to put in place.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the problems basically is just I think it's the youth of these players. They're so young, and they don't really understand all the complexities. They don't really understand the necessity to just band together, speaking a voice that as one. Like you said, it wouldn't be good for one team or one player, to come out and just denounce a certain tournament. It would be better if they all could do it collectively, and unfortunately they haven't really done that yet. And otherwise, if they had, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. But I do think that with what you were talking about with the venture capitalists, you're talking about basically a venture capitalist coming in and I guess funding this without receiving any equity or anything like that. I mean, it would almost have to be altruistic, would it not? I feel like that's I'm not too sure if they see it like that, because most venture capitalists, they see it with the dollar signs, and I've done some esports consulting for venture capitalists actually, and they've been asking my opinion about a good space to get involved in, and I try to direct them the best way I can, but they're always looking to get equity, and more often than not ownership, and it's just and see some sort of return on what they're doing, because that's ultimately the end goal, to make more money. So I do think that it's an issue.
Well, I mean, the key word in venture capitalist is venture, and that is that they see it as an ongoing thing, that there has to be a return. Now, interestingly enough, while I was at this thing, I mean, because obviously I was introduced as working for the Daily Dot, but I've subsequently resigned. I've had my last day with the Daily Dot now, which doesn't mean I wouldn't. I might not write for them again in future. I'm effectively freelance at the moment, but the amount of job offers I got were startling. I mean, literally, I probably has got about a dozen job offers, like, come work for us, come and we'll pay you, X amount of, ridiculous amount of money to be a consultant. We'll, and obviously I've turned all of this down. I'm not financially driven whatsoever. But
maybe get that ESPN job.
We'll see about that. I mean, I thought it was interesting that I actually got asked the question about whether I thought ESPN were independent during my speech on journalism, and I said resoundingly no. So whether that'll come back to bite me on the arse, I don't know. But anyway, so the point is, every time I was getting offered a job, what I was saying was, why don't, instead of paying me $50,000 to act as a consultant and basically point me in the right direction as esports, why don't you give me $250,000 and I will build the first players union, and the only thing you will get for it is a pat on the back, but you will have changed the fucking face of esports forever. Everybody will always know it was you that did it. And then if you do decide to get into another esports venture down the road, you will always be the people that put the seed capital in place for the first ever players union, and you will have credibility. So that's kind of the angle I've been going down to sell it to these people. Now, it's took a lot of drinks, it's took a lot of cocktails, and a lot of dinners. I mean, my heartburn is fucking killing me right now. But I think I've actually maybe got some people that could possibly come round to the idea of basically putting money into something and then totally walking away from it to help develop the space, because a players union is good for business. It's good for everybody. It means we get a better return of investment for everybody. So it's entirely possible. And yeah, look, so people are saying that's a horrible sales pitch. You're absolutely right, but it's the only sales pitch that can work and guarantee impartiality. I can't have like, hey, Google, YouTube want to sponsor a fucking players association? You think, well, why not? And then, of course, do YouTube players get the service for free while everyone has to subscribe? Do the YouTube people who stream on YouTube, do they get better lawyers than everyone else? There would always be these questions of bias. It has to be, like I say, a one-time cash injection with no fucking equity. So, yeah, I've spent the time out here in San Francisco basically trying to rustle up some cash for a fucking players union.
Aside from that, obviously I think that's right. I mean, it would have to be altruistic, and I do think that as long as they were impartial and they weren't beholden to these capitalists, I think that it could work. I think that attorneys providing really cheap or almost free help to these people, that is something that could work as well. I mean, I personally have been reaching out while I was still in law school. I was trying to contact the New York City Bar Association. I went to Cardozo. I was trying to contact the NYCBA and talk with the some committees just to go and maybe provide free help to these individuals, because I do think that there could be a push. It doesn't necessarily need to be a fully structured union at first. There needs to be something even before that where these individuals know they could turn somewhere to get some help.
Exactly, and that's pretty much what came up over the lunch. I every lunch I had, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, it's incredibly expensive to put lawyers on retainer, and you would need it to be non-regional specific, so you need European lawyers, people with expertise in Germany, and then Sweden and everywhere else. And it's like, it's such a massive undertaking. The legal costs alone would be astronomical. And I'm like, well, no, because to begin with, you wouldn't have them on retainer. You would need to use the model that a trade union in the UK uses, which is you subscribe, that money goes into a pot. When an incident comes up for a union member, they have an interview or a union representative meet them, and then we decide accordingly what the best course of action is. And I only had a very cursory grasp of employment law, but you get trained fundamentally in the basics, so you know when something's inappropriate, or when actually, okay, this looks suspicious, I need to consult a lawyer and they can give me a bit more clarity on this particular topic. So I feel that's how it would start. I don't think you need dedicated staff. I think you just need to have the slush fund there, and eventually it might even become a self-sustaining model. I don't know what the annual subscription fee would be, what would be appropriate, what would represent value for money and be affordable so it didn't exclude people from potentially subscribing to it. But, let's just say ballpark $25 a year to have access to an unlimited amount of services as required by the individual on a long enough time scale. Maybe this is something that can be sustainable, but maybe not. But if we had a huge cash injection at the start, that was literally, the only costs would be whatever you needed in terms of services, and of course, whoever was organizing it, let's say me, I would require obviously a modest salary, which I know it sounds like cunt who try to do Team Reddit. But you would. So the other thing that would need to be in place as well at the point. This is something else I said. All paid-up union members could at any time issue, say 3 months in, issue a vote of no confidence in their elected representative, and they could push for new elections if they wanted to.
Right.
So again, what I would want, let's just say it was me. It doesn't have to be me, but let's say it was. I would want the mechanics in there so if at any point I became a tyrannical despot, I could be removed. And that would be very important to the infrastructure as well. So you would draw a living salary from it, and you would be able to be elected or voted out should there be enough people who wanted to put a vote of no confidence in. So at any point, at any point you could be removed. I mean, I sat down, I did like a draft, like a sort of manifesto as to what would be required. And they're sort of the things that I came up with.
I mean, I think that those are pretty good ideas. I mean, it's a step in the right direction no matter what, because right now we have nothing. So, very little. I mean, there are some players that are represented, but I do think that is certainly a step in the right direction. And I do think, I mean, it would be fantastic. You said that you've had success with talking to these individuals, or you're beginning to have success, or...
I'm winning people over. I mean, this is the thing. It's like... You got to understand. I mean, that doesn't mean I'll follow up on it, but as I said, there's a lot of people here with more money than sense. There's a lot of people here. That's true. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
You can come to these things and sell magic beans if you want to be that guy. And I'm not that guy, but I'm sure there's a lot of people here who've got ideas that are completely hokum, and they're going to get cut a big fat check. What I'm doing is I'm trying to win people around to the idea of. Because everybody says this is again recurring phrase. Let's all grow the pie together rather than people being greedy and trying to take a slice. And the people who say that, they're the people you've got to be the most suspicious about, because they're often the ones that try and create monopolies by any other name. Like even right now, there's talk about big groups that own companies in esports looking to acquire other companies to consolidate their position. And these are the people that are publicly saying, hey, everyone, let's grow esports for everybody. And what they mean is let's grow esports for us. Right. So we're going to keep buying companies until we control so much of it. We're the go-to company. And that's what everybody wants. So what I'm trying to do with these guys is, because like I said, these are venture capitalists. These are people who they go just phenomenal amounts of money. I'd say people are selling their companies for huge amounts, and I'm asking for a very small chunk of change to do something that I think 5 years from now would have a profound benefit for everybody in the business, would mean more money was flowing into it, would mean we would look more professional, would create a much more stable environment, and that would be good. That would have a long-term benefit should they want to invest in something else or buy another company. So, and so I don't know. I mean, look, I think everyone's really polite at these functions as well. So they're probably going to say, hey, that sounds like a great idea. We can totally make this a reality. Let's do it. And, they all chink our glasses and they all have cigars and we all do that, right? And then we all fuck off back and forth and we think, what the fuck was that meeting about? That's never going to happen. Like,
$250,000 to these people is basically nothing anyway. So to be completely honest with you, like you're...
Yeah, and that's the ballpark figure I'm operating with. I think that's realistically what we need to fucking get this thing off the ground, to get a working website in there, to be able to consult with anyone legally if we need it, to bring in agents to do contract negotiations should that be required. Just to have that sort of presence right from the start. But I could be wrong. I definitely will accept that I could be wrong about this. It could be a pipe dream. It might not happen.
There's so many other complexities. I mean, with regards to just multiple titles that you would have to negotiate with the different league structures and each thing. I mean, would you have it for one? Would you have it for esports, or would you have it for League of Legends? I mean, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. It has to. Right. So you definitely can't discriminate against people based on game. I think that goes without saying. You don't want to turn anyone away, really, from anything. And here's the thing. You don't need to understand one game specifically. I think all of the issues are the fucking same across every game. So I think, the idea that it has to be a league players association, a CSGO player, I think that's ridiculous. I think everybody faces the same problems. You get gypped on contracts, you get You get fucked over on expenses. You have to go to tournaments where things aren't as they seem. You've got managers that fucking steal money and disappear into the night, and never to be seen again. These are the issues that affect everybody in esports across the board, and we need something that's robust enough to be able to cater to everybody. Just because, say, for example, again, using me as an example, doesn't have to be me, it could be anybody, but, if it was me and I was going out there and it's like, look, I don't really follow the Dota 2 scene, but I can sit and have a conversation with somebody, and, like, if somebody says, well, I've not been paid in 7 months, it doesn't fucking matter what game you play, you're getting fucking wrecked, and that needs to be resolved and addressed, and the legal recourse for that is the same, whether it's StarCraft, CS, anything else. It's incredible. Honestly, I don't think you would even believe it for a second. It's incredible the amount of players, and I was seeing that owed money from years ago. In fact,
I believe it.
If you were to talk to a professional, if you were to talk to a professional player, I'm just going to turn my camera off a minute. Sorry, I know it's been lagging in and out.
Yeah,
just
a little bit.
If you were to talk to any professional, they'll all tell you the same thing. I am owed, sometimes tens of thousands,
Right.
and this will go back for years and years and years. And you're like, well, why aren't you pursuing this? And they're like, well, managers have told me not to. Managers say they'll deal with it. I don't want to cause a fuss. They still run tournaments now, and I don't want to get banned from competing at their tournaments. I don't know how to pursue it. These are the common responses.
Right.
Very rarely does anyone say, I have been in the act of pursuing it. There's an ongoing piece of litigation or whatever. And that never gets said. It's always...
I've never heard anyone say that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's a political reason as to why I'm not pursuing my fundamental fucking rights to get prize money, salary, expenses, whatever it is. And it's got to change. And the only way you're going to change, for me, is by insulating that player, putting somebody in place that can deal with it on a legal basis and privately. This is why I've been trying to sell this idea to managers. It's better for managers, because instead of a player waking up one day and snapping and going, right, I've got real life shit to do now and I'm owed $60,000, I'm going on Twitter. So instead of that happening, what they do is a solicitor, a lawyer, or whatever comes to you privately and goes, right, my client is owed this money, we're going to sue you. You've got by this date to put something in court that my client finds